next speaker is Mr. Jason Martin. Mr. Martin is the president of Secure DNA Consulting and Secure DNA Managed Security Services and has over 13 years of experience in information technology security, IT audit, IT control assessment, and re-engineering. Prior to joining Secure DNA Consulting, Mr. Martin led KPMG's Information Risk Management Group in Hawaii and was part of a leadership team for KPMG's National Information Security Services Group. He has provided expert security, consulting, and assessment services to KPMG's Fortune 100, 500, and 1,000 client base. In his professional service role, Mr. Martin has successfully designed, implemented, and operated security programs, multi-million-dollar organizations within Hawaii and the U.S. mainland. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your attendance today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate the introduction. Okay, so we're a local security company based out of Honolulu. We have offices in Asia and also the mainland. We service clients here in Hawaii and the U.S. mainland. We do a lot of nonprofit work in the security world, which is we're part of the HoneyNet Alliance, which is an international project for monitoring global networks for emerging threats, and we operate the Hawaii HoneyNet project. We also run ShakaCon, which is a local security conference, and we participate in some organizations you've heard of, like InfraGard, Chris was talking about, and we speak at conferences around the world. The CIA website hacked. Symantec last year said 286 million distinct threats were released in 2010. Sony hacked, right? A report released by the Anti-Phishing Working Group said 48% of 22 million scanned computers were infected. Okay. And then this is from yesterday. Some of you may have seen this or not, but Booz Allen Hamilton, which is a large defense contracting firm and has a pretty large presence in Hawaii, was recently hacked, and personal information about 90,000 personnel, including U.S. military personnel, was released. So bad. You can't see it, but reported breaches, I apologize because I think it's the light on it, but reported breaches are up, disclosed vulnerabilities are up, malware is up significantly. Victims cross the board from government agencies to government contractors to internet providers to financial institutions. As was mentioned earlier, these hacking tools are now sold and marketed. There's significant money made by criminal groups that just sell tools. They have software licensing agreements. They're not extremely expensive. Yeah.
Legal documents?
Yeah, you have to agree to not release things. There's ULAs, there's everything. So it's a criminal enterprise. That's really what we're seeing. Botnets, which are really the method where infected machines are part of, typically called being part of a botnet, are used to perpetuate these attacks, and they're just up, just significantly, the number of infected hosts that are out there on the internet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about specifically what we're seeing in attacks against Hawaii. One of our companies does management and monitoring of network security systems for companies within Hawaii. Okay, so what I had is I asked one of our analysts to do some number crunching for the 6-month period from July 2010 to December 2010. So over that period, we had over 4 million attacks against Hawaii networks that we monitor. Okay, that comes out to an average, I think, about 31,767 attacks per day. And on our highest peak day, we had over 94,000 attacks against Hawaii-based networks. Now, we don't monitor all networks in Hawaii. This is just a small subset of the networks that we monitor. For the month of December last year, we detected over 1.5 million attacks during that month, and that was the highest month. This is kind of typical. We'll see a lot of spikes in malware and malicious activity around the holidays, holiday scams. I think the hackers need to buy Christmas presents too, so they kick up their activities in this period. This is a geolocation from our dashboard that shows kind of how attackers, this is one host on the left, that's Hawaii, and different targets attacking it simultaneously. And this is when the concept that we talk about botnets, where multiple computers, sometimes hundreds of thousands and millions of computers, can be used to attack a network or a host.
Any names there?
That is hard to see. Yeah. China's a big part of it, yeah, and then I think Central Europe, and then the United States. And that actually brings up a really good question. So who's attacking us? Okay, so we ran these statistics as well. Now, what I think is going to be surprising is it's actually the United States. We have the highest number of attacks, and this is pretty consistent across the globe. The U.S. is actually the source for most attacks, followed by China and Taiwan, as was discussed earlier, and then a variety of other countries. Now, you've heard several speakers use the term attribution. So in the cyber world, cyberspace, attribution is next to impossible if you're dealing with a sophisticated attacker. In the kinetic space, if you fire a missile at a country, you can track the trajectory, you know who shot a missile at you, right? In the cyber world, you can't. I mean, once they penetrate, and so very sophisticated attackers will hack, you know, a computer in France, then Russia, then China, then they might attack another company. So you talk about trying to get search warrants, you get a search warrant in that country, you find out that that was spoofed, so you try to get, you know, suddenly 4 countries removed, and your investigation is lost a lot of time. So just some interesting statistics there. What we're noticing, I think the main takeaway, that I'll tie in some later part of my presentation, is that a lot of the attacks we see are just mass botnet worm attacks. And so why I bring that up is they're not targeted attacks against SWAT companies. For the most part, I'm going to call these target of opportunity attacks. Okay, so these are the concept that if you plug a computer into the internet, you will be attacked. It doesn't matter who you are. We have a lot of clients say, why would anyone want to hack me? It's not about who you are, it's what you have, which is a computer system on the internet that probably has vulnerabilities, and they can use it to do other things. If not steal your data, they'll use it to attack someone else and steal their data. So that's you know, kind of important. So when I was asked to come out here, I didn't know what to present on, so I just kind of sat over the weekend and thought about it. And I think the 2 major things that I kind of want to talk to and lead into some of my suggestions maybe for some legislative action were the concept that, number 1, cyber identities are stolen typically to perpetuate financial fraud. They're going to steal your bank account information. They might do something to embarrass you, but a lot of times they're after what you have, which is money. And this usually happens in 2 ways. One, the first way is you are unpatched, you download something off the internet, you get hacked, you get infected, or they directly infect your computer, or they directly attack your computer, i.e. it was on the internet, it got scanned, it got infected. For the downloading or the accessing a file or doing something you shouldn't have been doing, as all the speakers before me have said, it's really hard to fix that. We can try to educate, but as we say in the business, there's no patch for human stupidity. So we can't deploy anything to fix everyone, right? So that's hard. That's probably the most difficult part. As Chris said, you know, the space between the keyboard and the individual is the impossible area to fix. So that's one area. You know, how do we secure the assets that actually plug into the internet, because they're used by criminals, right? It's like leaving the keys in your car and having them take your car and go do a crime and then returning it to your garage. You're not the wiser, and then you have someone show up at your door. The second is what I've been thinking about, I call it cyber identity convergence. And a lot of people are guilty of this. And this is as you go out and you sign up for sites like Groupon or your favorite car aficionado blog or whatever it might be, they ask you to register. They ask you for an email. They typically ask you to create a username, and they ask you for a password. Okay. Now most people will use the same password over and over and over and over again. And so the password for their Groupon site happens to be the password for their email account. Now Groupon has their email, and it has their password now. So if Groupon gets hacked into, your password gets disclosed. Oh, you might not care about your Groupon account. Okay, but if they're smart, they're going to say, hey, I have an email address and a password. You know what? People are typically going to reuse these 2. And they try it. Now they're in your email. And a lot of the other things you've heard the previous speakers talk about can occur, where they can pretend to be you, they can link your financial accounts, they can do a lot of different things. So when I talk about this, the concept of patching your computers, the graph I have up there is actually the survival time. So if you think of it as like, you know, you let a little mouse out into the wild, how long is it going to survive in a, you know, packs of cats roaming around? The average survival time for a computer, as estimated by the Internet Storm Center, is 20 minutes. That means if you put an unpatched computer on the internet, it will be infected within 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that goes to the point I was talking about, where it's not target of opportunity, it's you're a target if you're on the internet. Okay. So that the bottom line is a consumer device at some point is going to be infected. Yeah.
What do you specifically mean by unpatched? Not having antivirus software?
Just let's say you take let's say I take a Windows XP machine. I don't apply any of the security updates to it. I have Internet Explorer, whatever, you know, none of the current updates. I put it on the internet, I just leave it there. This is the amount of time it will take for it to get infected with something.
So if I go and talk to my girlfriend on the phone and my computer's still on the internet, that's what you mean?
Yeah, like you get it new, you get it brand new, or you buy it or something, and it's you haven't taken the time to patch it. And the problem is you have to put it on the internet to patch it in most cases, right? So, and the time it takes to download the patches is more than 20 minutes. Right, so generally what happens is when you buy a new computer, it's patched up to date for the most part. They may have host-based firewalls that help with this, and so they prevent malicious traffic from hitting the host. But if you didn't do anything for purposes of research, I guess they do this. It would take less than 20 minutes for you to get compromised. And as I talked about with the identity convergence, as people use multiple accounts to register for multiple internet services, it becomes a problem because you're not required to disclose breach of email account and password. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So here's my thoughts on.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
There was a couple of spikes there that just seemed way off the chart. Why?
I didn't look specifically into why those spikes were there, but the average. This is a cumulative time. So what they do is they take Windows systems, Unix systems, peer-to-peer. They do a variety of factors, and they throw it into the chart to see what the total amount of time would be.
Big soccer match that day, maybe?
Yeah. So Christmas time again? No, I don't know. January, February again spikes like we saw. We see a lot in December, January. Okay, so maybe not the most popular idea. It's not my idea necessarily, but I think it's a great idea. Internet service providers, I think they should have some responsibility here. People are going to do a bad job at protecting themselves. They are going to make mistakes. They're not going to patch their computers on a timely basis. If they patch their computers, they're not going to patch their browser. If they patch their browser, they're not going to patch their browser components. Okay, the message here is that there's so many things that they have to fix. Now ISPs provide a superhighway that allow people onto the internet, but there's really no requirement that they help protect these people. There's no cop on every corner. There's no one looking to make sure that it's safe. Private companies do this. Private company monitors their network and their entry point into the internet to make sure that infected machines aren't going out to the internet and disclosing their data. Right? So the technology's there. There's ability to do it, and I think it could be something to look at. You know, requiring some level of reporting or monitoring on a provider network to then let a consumer know that they've been infected, maybe remove their computer from the network if it's been infected, or do something. Limit the attacker's ability to access that network, because attackers have to access that network, that computer. They come inbound, maybe restrict inbound access to that computer. It is a consumer device. It's not hosting a web server. It doesn't really have any requirement to allow external parties to connect to it in general. So do something to kind of look at your net, monitor your network, make sure it's safe, and warn people. Comcast is doing this with their Constant Guard program. They've been piloting it for a while now. And then in Australia, they're trying to get ISPs to sign up to this code of conduct where they will help consumers at least notify them and remove malware-infected computers from the internet. This is important because even if they don't steal the data from those computers are going to be used to launch cyber attacks against other companies, other businesses, other individuals, spam, whatever. It's going to be used for something unsafe. So that's one idea I have that I wanted to share. Update PII definition. So, right now, PII, as defined by Hawaii state law, does not include email address and password unless it's in the context of a financial account. So financial account and password to access a financial account are considered PII.
What's PII?
Personally identifiable information. Yeah, so Act 135, 136, 137, I think. It relates to those. But I'd kind of like to see, and including if you're going to ask someone for their email address and their password, and you lose it and you get hacked into, there's no requirement right now that you release that information. So let's update the definition of PII to include that, and have some notification. Now there's a broad implications to that as far as costs to the companies within the state that do that. But right now, when I'm involved in an incident that doesn't involve PII, and there's been a breach, that company is under no responsibility to let anyone know that there's been a breach of their security. I think that's a big hole because of identity convergence. Because now they don't have access to your financial account, but they have access to your email, which links all your financial accounts, which you can request a password reset for, which you can do a variety of things. You can send malicious emails out to people on your contact list. You can do a lot. So I'd like to see it where you have to actually report that information. And then update to current laws. So doing business. Growing up here and then doing business in Hawaii, in the cyber arena, Act 135 was actually probably the biggest change agent that I've seen from a private company perspective in trying to address proactively the security of their networks. If you weren't in a regulated industry like healthcare, governed by HIPAA, or finance governed by GLBA, you didn't have to disclose a breach, period. So when Hawaii enacted this act, it was very beneficial because you would have to disclose a breach. So companies had to step back and say, it's going to be embarrassing. Number one, it's probably going to be costly. We better, take a standard of due care protect this data. And so we saw a lot of engagement and attention from this act, but I don't think it goes far enough. And again, this is not a new or unique idea. If you want to look at to other states, I have an example of one. But I think that the act should look at enhancing requirements, reasonable requirements, for proactively protecting the data, not just disclosing that you've lost it. It does not today require reasonable preventive measures for from a cybersecurity perspective. If we update it, I might recommend looking at Massachusetts 201 CMR 17, which is the standard for the protection of personal information of the residents of the Commonwealth. Well, it differs. I think there's 46 states that have privacy laws, and then District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and Virgin Islands. They're mostly about breach notification. Massachusetts really went out and kind of set the bar higher than anyone else and says, that's not enough for you to tell our citizens that you lost their data. You need to do something to try and protect it. And here's what we think are reasonable safeguards that you have in place. It's a really good, very simple law, very straightforward. I think it's a good area for us to look at.